Hello students, welcome to the next session of Quantity Surveying and Contracts Management. This is Professor Vidyasar Mugi. In this session, we'll be studying on tender notice, receiving, opening and scrutiny of tenders, and what is e-tendering process. To begin with, the tender notice. So after the tender documents are prepared and approved by the authority, a notice inviting the tenders will be published on a notice board of the departments, or for greater magnitude of work they are even given a high publicity by publishing them in the most open or wide manner possible. So how this is achieved? So this is achieved by advertising the tender notice through the popular news channels, press, or in notices in English or Hindi languages, which are the official languages preferred in our country. Along with that, the language with respect to that particular district or state is posted in a public place. Also nowadays, notices are invited or published through internet. So the organization will upload the required information on their website, and there are some websites available nowadays which are dedicated only to host the information related to the business opportunity in the construction industry. So by means of this, the tender notice is made to reach to the concerned personals who can approach for that particular work with respect to the government. So this is how they host the tender notices. Now in this tender notice, what are the particulars that are written in the tender notice? So in tender notice, the first of all, it is the name of the authority that is calling for tender. So name of the authority is mentioned and where the work is to be done. So name of the work, what type of work it is, and its location is written. So this is one point, this is one point. Then what is the estimated cost of the project, estimation of project. Then what is the period of contract and type of contract, period and type of contract. So means by what time you have to complete it. So period and time of contract, and when and where the contract is to be purchased, where contract is to be purchased. Then next thing that is included is amount to be paid, amount to be paid for the set of tender documents. Then last date and time of submission of tender, which is very important. Then the amount of earnest money deposit that is to be accompanied with the tender, and amount of security deposit that is to be paid by the selected contractor. So we call it as earnest money deposit is EMD, and security deposit that is to be accompanied while the time of putting the tender, and what is the security amount that is to be deposited after the contractor has been selected. So earnest money deposit is generally it is taken 2%. So this 2% is to be given along with the tender. So while you are going for applying the tender, the contractor has to pay the amount as a safeguard amount that he is actually or genuinely applying for a tender. So that is called as earnest money deposit. So out of the number of tenders that the government authorities will receive, if any contractor is selected, then that earnest money deposit is converted into the security deposit, which is generally 10%. So earnest money deposit is while you are going for a process of tender work, and when that contractor is selected for that particular work, then it is called as security deposit. So that is also mentioned in the tender notice. Then date and time of opening of tender. So there will be a public meeting. So date and time of opening of tender, and last one, designation of the officer. So this is mentioned in the tender. So this is what is done in tender notice and what are the particulars. Okay, so going on to the next. So next thing is receiving, opening and scrutiny of tender. So here we have called for tender notice. So after the tender notice, what is done? So tender receiving. So what is this? Tender receiving. So after issue of all the tender documents to the contractor, the tender opening authority authorizes an officer to receive the tenders, and tenders may be sent either by post or can be put in a tender box kept for the purpose in the premises of the owner. Now once this process of tender notice is done, the contractors who are interested to take up that work, they have to send that tender by mail or by post, or they have to put in a tender box which is kept in the office premises of that particular department. And to look after all that thing, authority or a government department will assign some officer who will take care of all that thing. Now this, depending upon the nature and size of the project, the bids may be submitted as a single package or in two parts containing a technical and financial parts separately. So now if the work is of greater magnitude, in one packet you can submit all the details related to the technical aspects, and in one more packet you can submit all the documents, estimates related to the financial aspects. So this you can make it reach to the authority by means of post or by putting those packets in the drop box that is kept in the office premises. So after that, the tenders placed in the tender box is logged and kept under a safe custody of the officer who is assigned for that particular work. It is kept in a safe custody under the supervision of officer. So officer, in this case, officer is assigned. You have to send the tenders by post or mail or by putting them in a tender box. Then after this, they are kept in a safe custody under the supervision of officer. Then the closing time of the receipt of tender should be kept after the normal time of the delivery of the post. That is, when they announce the tender through a notice, there should be a decent time maintained, looking into consideration by what time they will receive the tenders through post. So they cannot hurry, because what happens if they mention the last date very early, and if a tender is being delayed by the post office, then it is mistake of whom? You cannot question anyone, right? So looking into all those things, not taking any trouble at the initial stage, they have to fix a decent time. Then the tenders, even after doing this, if the tenders are received after the due date and time, they are straight away rejected. So all this thing is done in what? It is done in tender receiving. So once the receiving of all the tenders and all is done, what is the next time? It is opening of tenders. Opening of tenders. So received, now they are going to open the tenders. Now here, the sealed tenders received are to be opened, right? So this is the very most important thing here. That is the second stage, that is opening of tender. Now this received tenders through mail, through posts and through tender box are gathered and they are opened in the presence of the contractor or their representatives tendering for the work at the time and place already notified, right? So they will call for a gathering of all the contractors who have applied for that particular project, and in the presence of those contractors or their representatives, the officials will open the tender in front of them. Then what is done in this particular process is, the officer who is authorized for this particular project, he has to open the tenders and has to read out the rates offered in case of the item rate or percentage rate tenders, and an amount in case of lump sum tenders for the information of all those present. So he'll read out the rates and all the information related to the particular work. Then all the tenders will be serially numbered and signed by the officer opening the tender. So in this process what they do is, they'll open the tenders, open the sealed tenders in presence of the concerned people. Now your concerned peoples are nothing but the contractors and their representatives, and he will declare the info related to the particular work, so that info related to work may be the item rates or percentage rates, amounts in case of lump sum, all these things. And after that they will serially sign all the tenders that are opened, and they are signed by the officers. After this, the next step is preparing comparative statements of tender. That is also done in this case. So next thing is, they will prepare comparative statements. So in comparative statements, what they do is, so while the time of giving the notice of the tender, so I discussed about the particulars that are included. So that will be what, the estimation of the work, amount to be paid, and all those things, right? So based on that, the government themselves will be working out the estimate of that particular project based on their knowledge. Then after that, when the contractor has approached the government officials with his estimates, the officer, what he will do is, he'll compare his rates with the contractor rates. So in this case what they'll do is, after all the tenders are opened, the comparative statement is made in the office of the tender opening authority, and it serves to compare the rates of various tenders in respect of each item against the estimated rates, right? So the government rates and the contractor rates. Then the excess or saving of each tender is worked out. Obviously government will choose the tender which is of the lowest bid. This is sure. This is what is followed. Then in comparative statements of percentage rates and lump sum tender contains information regarding the name of the contractor, date of receipt of the tender, percentage above or below the rates entered in the tender documents, amount in case of lump sum tenders. The recommendation regarding acceptance or rejections of the tender is recorded on it. So after the comparison, whether it is with respect to the percentage rates or lump sum rates, along with that the name of the contractor and all the information related to him will be there. Comparing the rates, what the officer will do is, he'll either reject or accept it, and that will be written on the tender itself. Similarly, if the comparative statement is with respect to item rates, the comparative statement must be correctly incorporate the rates and amount of the total drawn up and checked on the individual tenders, because here if the mistake is done, it will lead to what, assigning the contract which is not the lowest bid, or assigning that work to a particular contractor whose bid may not be the lowest among the present contractors. So because of that, this should be correctly scrutinized. After doing the comparative statement, the next thing what they will do is scrutiny of tenders. Scrutiny of tenders. Scrutiny of tenders, what they will do is, after preparing comparative statement, after undergoing a comparative statement, The tender opening authority shall verify whether the contractor has agreed to all the tender conditions or he has included any special conditions, and the consequent variation in the total amount has to be calculated. In scrutiny of tender, what they'll do is, after comparative statement, authority will verify whether contractor has agreed to all their terms and conditions. Or he has included any special conditions of his own. So that will be scrutinized in the scrutiny of tenders. Then, if the acceptance of a particular tender does not rest with the divisional officer, he may forward that tender along with the comparative statement and tender documents with his recommendation or observation to the next higher authority for consideration. So suppose while doing of scrutiny, if the contractor has any request, or if the officer feels that it is not possible to scrutinize with his powers, he can send those tender documents along with the comparative statements to the next higher authority, where they look after that particular thing, whether it should be accepted or rejected. So this is what is done in scrutiny of tenders. After tendering, opening and scrutiny, next thing is acceptance. After undergoing all the screening thing, so next comes acceptance of the tender. So in acceptance of tender, what they do is, again based on comparative statement, the lowest bid or the lowest tender is accepted, as I said. So lowest tender is accepted. Lowest tender is accepted, except in case where the contractor who has quoted the lowest rate has not been satisfactory on previous occasion or there is a doubt. So acceptance of tender, they will accept the lowest tender provided the same contractor has completed his previous work with what he has quoted, right, or if there is any doubt. So they will cross check, or else he is selected. Then the tender whose rates are accepted is intimated to sign the contract documents, right? If the lower once the lower tender, the contract with the lower tender is accepted, so after he is accepted, he will be intimated to sign the tender documents within a stipulated time and date. If he doesn't sign on the specified date and time, the authority has a power to cancel that contractor and pass on that contract to the next lowest bid. So that is done in case of acceptance of tender. So if the contractor, who is selected in the first hand, if he doesn't sign on a specific date and time, then the authority has a power to pass on that tender to the next lowest bid that they have chosen among the present contractors. So that is what is done in acceptance of tender. Letter. After that, letter of intent. So in letter of intent, once all the approvals are done by the authority, then the letter of intent is issued to the contractor requesting him to submit all the necessary documents, like if he has any partnership deeds, in case of any partnership firm, income tax details and income tax clearance, right? All these documents are collected from the contractor. Contractor should submit required documents. So required documents. So documents like if he is having any partnership deeds or any income and the income tax clearance. Then at this stage, that is at the letter of intent, at this stage the earnest money deposit of the successful tenderer is converted to the security deposit. Now once this contractor is selected, the earnest money deposit what he had deposited in the initial stage while tendering process, that amount is converted to the security deposit. Then after that some conditions are provided by the authorities, and if not possible they'll adjust all the amount in the initial running bills. So in letter of intent, contractor has to submit the documents and his earnest money deposit is converted into the security deposit. Then after that, work order. Work order, after the contracting agency or the contractor accepts the offer and submits the necessary documents. Accepts offer and submits the necessary documents, a work order is issued detailing the special terms and conditions, the mode of payment, the payment of security deposit, the total value of the contract, etc. In the work order, the contractor is asked to enter into agreement with the owner and initiate the work. So in this work order, so once the contractor accepts the offer, he has to submit the documents, submit necessary documents. Then after that, work order is issued and all the conditions, terms and conditions, how the payment is done to the contractor, payment mode, and total value of the contract, all those things are discussed by the authorities here. Then the contractor is asked to make an agreement with the government officials or owner, agreement with the owner, I'll call them owner, government officials, and start his work. Start his work. Then after that, agreement. So agreement, in this, the contractor contacts the engineer in charge of the project and while preparing to start the work at the site, enters into agreement with the owner. So the agreement, what the agreement includes is, it includes the previous relevant documents like the letter of intent, the work order, the general conditions of the contract, special conditions of contract, and specifications and drawings. After the documents are signed by both parties, it becomes a contract which is legally binding. So agreement is a final stage, that is when the contractor contacts the engineer in charge of the project. So there the contractor enters into the agreement with the owner. So now what the agreement includes are, it is letter of intent, so he is to provide the proof that he has been legally selected. So letter of intent, work order, then details related to project. So I'll write details related to project means what? So estimate of the work, details, drawings of the work, all those things. Then general conditions, general terms and conditions, general and special conditions made by the owners, all those things are given to them. Then there the owner and the contractor will sign, which is considered as a agreement, and then it becomes what? It becomes a contract, and it becomes what? Legal. So now the contractor is legally binded with the owner. So this is what follows in the receiving, opening and scrutiny of the tender. So all these things are carried out after the tender notice is sent. Received, tenders are received, and this is the process that is carried out. Okay, moving on to the next part. So next thing we'll discuss on what is e-tendering. Now all the things what I discussed previously is all the manual process, that is right from applying a tender to actually selecting a final contractor. All this thing the contractor has to be manually present there, and it happens to be very laborious and very long process. Now to avoid all those things, the new system is been come up, which is nothing but the e-tendering process, or it is called as e-tendering system. Now what is this e-tendering system? It is a tendering system to electronic medium. The whole process what we discussed is done through the electronic means. So e-tendering is an electronic tendering solution which facilitates the complete tendering process from the advertising of the requirement through to the placing of the contracts. See here, from advertising to placing of contracts, it is all done through the means of electronics. Now what this includes, the exchange of all the relevant documents in the electronic format. Everything is online. Then the advantage of this e-tendering is it offers opportunity for automating most of the tender process, such as preparing the tender specification, advertising, tender aggregation, to the valuation and placing of contract, right? So e-tendering offers an opportunity for automating most of the tendering process. So that is, most of the tendering process includes what? Preparing tender specification, advertising, then tender aggregation, evaluation, and placing of contract. So all these things are done through electronic means, placing of contracts. Now why this is preferred more nowadays? Because manual tendering process is very long, time consuming, and it is very laborious. Generally manual tendering takes place for more than 3 to 4 months or maybe more than that, right? And it also turns out to be very costly for the contractor and organizations, because every time when they call for a meeting, that the contractor has to be physically present there, and it will be a burden for the organization who is calling a tender, and also for who is attending the tender. It will be costly as well as time consuming. So all these things can be eliminated by e-tendering process. So all these things can be eliminated by the e-tendering process. Also, e-tendering process allows the contractor to allow contractors to download the form directly sitting at his place. Allow the contractor to download as well as upload the tender related documents, right? Tender related documents. So it will allow the contractor to download and upload tender documents, track status of the document, then receive email alerts. So here, because of e-tendering process, it eliminates the need of the contractor to be physically present or send his representative to the tendering office, and it also provides the bidder the privacy and the organization with transparency. That is, no contractor will face each other at the time of bidding, which will cause trouble to some extent. So that will be avoided. The face-to-face contact of the contractors will be avoided. So there will be a privacy between the bidders, and because of this, the bidders need not fear any intimation from the competitors, since no one knows who is actually bidding, right? Because everything is online, no one knows who is bidding actually. Then also bidding is done in an anonymous fashion, that is, it is not disclosed who is bidding, and also it will not allow any contact with the organization, so there is no question of any influence or any soft corner towards any particular contractors. Also the contract will be awarded based on the contractor's efficiency and his merit, and not by any internal connection with the organization or any friends or all those things of sorts, right? So all these things will be avoided. So there is no favorism done in the department when it is the online mode. Then after this, the advantages of e-tendering. So what are the advantages of e-tendering? So advantages of e-tendering is, first one is it reduces the tender cycle. Reduce tender cycle. It reduces the tender cycle. Then it is fast and accurate. So all the stages of pre-qualification and evaluation will be done very fast and it is very accurate. And there is automatic rejection of the contractor if he fails to meet any tender specification. So the software itself will automatically reject the contractor if he hasn't uploaded the required documents or if he fails to fit that criteria. So it is fast, accurate. Then faster response is achieved through this. Faster response to the frequently asked questions and answers. So any clarifications required, that will be done through customer care centers. Then reduction in the labor intensive, that is no labors are involved, much labors are not involved to carry out all the manual processes like they are done previously. This is not involved here. It is directly between the software and the contractors and the organization. No middle person involved here. So all the, and also it reduces the manual labor intensive tasks. And recording and distribution of tender submissions all are not necessary. It is automatically done in the software. Then it reduces in labor intensive work, like maintain the records of the documents. All those things are avoided here. Then reduction of the paper trails. So paperwork is also reduced because everything is through electronic means. So reduction of paper trails. So reduction of paper trails. Then reducing the cost of consuls and the suppliers. Then also it improves audit trails. Which improved audit trails means what? There is no favorism and all things possible. So it improves the audit trails. It will be very fair means, and it will be with more integrity and transparency, so that a deserving person gets the contract. Then it also improves the quality of tender. Improves quality of tender. Quality of tender of specification, and also improves. It provides or provision of quality management information. So these are the advantages of the e-tendering process. So hope you liked today's session. So if you need a notes on these topics, you can contact me through email ID and I'll be sending you the notes. So for notes, you can contact me through the email ID which will be given at the end of this video. Thank you very much.